Welcome to another edition of The Human Condition from the Sitting Position. I want to do something a little bit different today. I want to share a Teisho with you. So a Teisho is a lecture given by a Zen master or a Roshi during a Dai-Sesshin retreat. So in the middle of the day, usually before lunch, maybe after the teacher has done koan practice, a round of koan practice with the students, everyone will march down in a line to the sutra hall, enter the sutra hall, and there's cushions waiting for them. There are two halves of the Zendo. There's Joju, who are kind of in the position of taking care of all the practical matters on camp, from cleaning and vacuuming the sutra hall, to setting up the dining hall for meals, to cooking all the meals, to organizing the retreat from the end of the head monk, etc. So Joju's in service of Donai, who comes down, marches into the sutra hall, Jikijitsu monk dings his bell, everybody sits down. There is a procedure where the head monk will bow to the teacher, and then the teacher will do bows before the Butsudan, go back into his, Butsudan being the altar, go back into his high chair, which is a chair that's high, and then the teacher has this text. So that's what he's giving the Teisho or the lecture on. It's a text. So there's a great deal of formality before the teacher engages with the text. So that's what a Teisho is. It's not just a dude getting up on a big seat that's high up and yakking. It is the teacher. I always found it interesting how my teacher would unfold the furoshiki, which is the, it's just a Japanese term for it. Basically, it's a big piece of cloth, and there were four corners folded over my teacher's copy of the text. It was this very old copy of the text. It wasn't even a book, really. It was bound by, the binding were three strings tied together, and these very foxed, ancient papers he brought over from Japan. And he would unfold very elegantly the four parts of the furoshiki, and now the text is in front of him. The ancient wisdom is in front of him, a koan from the past, or perhaps something from the Rinzai Roku, or the Book of Rinzai, Lin-Chi, the founder of the Rinzai text. Perhaps there's something in there that he's going to give the lecture on. So this is a Teisho, okay? It's, again, the teacher is interacting with this ancient wisdom, and it's a practice that he's doing. It's different than, say, a Dharma talk. So priests in my lineage, I'm a lay Zen priest in Sasaki Roshi's Tathagata Zen lineage. Priests can give Dharma talks. So that is a talk basically about practice. There was once upon a time a lot of rules in our community around what you could or could not talk about. But that's sort of fallen a bit by the wayside. So a Dharma talk is basically a Zen priest giving you a talk about the Dharma, but not in the same way a Zen Roshi would talk about the Dharma. In a Teisho, the teacher is manifesting the Dharma orally. It's coming through him or her. A Zen priest is just kind of speaking of or about Dharma. So it's different, okay? And then what I do in these videos is none of the above. I wouldn't even call this a Dharma talk, because although I'm a priest and I'm talking oftentimes about the Dharma, this is not being done in a formal practice setting of any kind, nor am I wearing my robe. So I'm just kind of talking about Zen. So all of that is a big introduction to say, what I want to do today is read you one Teisho that my teacher gave once upon a time, I think it was 1997, during a retreat, during a formal training summer Seichu season. I have always had a particular affinity for this particular Teisho. I was not there, obviously, when my teacher gave it, but I came across it when I was a monk. Actually, I wasn't a monk yet. I was still a student. And I did a commando mission. So my teacher had told us, always consistently, throughout his entire teaching career in America, like, do not attach to Teisho. Do not attach to my words. Don't ever publish these things, etc., etc. But nonetheless, we recorded the Teishos over the years, and sometimes they were transcribed. And these massive volumes of transcribed paper Teishos were locked in a room. So one time I snuck into the office and I stole the keys and I snuck around to this side door, which was, I believe it was in the shower house, and there was a storage room there, and I broke into the storage room and I just grabbed the first folder of Teishos that I could find, and I went down to Kinko's and I copied them, and that's what this is right here. And it's kind of interesting because I've read through this whole volume. You can see it's about that thick. There's a lot of pages here. There's maybe, I don't know, it's got to be about 300, 350, maybe 400 pages. It's a fairly substantial volume of Teishos. But time and time again, I find myself drawn to this very first one. And I have an affinity for this particular teaching on this particular day, July 14, 1997, that my teacher gave. So that's part of the reason why I want to go through this. Now, this is going to be a little bit long today, so you can skip around as you will. You can take your phone, you can put it by your pillow on the bed, you can lay flat, and you can sleep while I speak, because that's what my teacher used to recommend that we do. He's like, I'm just going to talk, and you all can fall asleep. And fall asleep we did. We sat there because it was hot. During the summer, it was hot in that sutra hall. And during the winter, we kept it really hot because as my teacher got older, he was more and more fragile and we didn't want to catch a cold. So it would be like, either way, it was as hot as a freaking butterfly house in that sutra hall. And he, and he would be talking like that. And then this translator would translate. And then and you'd be sitting there. And Roshi said he would look out and you'd see our heads bobbing like eggplants in the wind. That's what he said of us monks. So you're free to do that. As I share this Teisho text with you. So you just sit back and relax, do your dishes, do your laundry, take a nap. I'm going to read this and I'm going to interact with it a little bit. I want to share it with you. I want to put it out there because it's a, why not? You guys listen to me a lot on this channel. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of a Zen master, which I am not. Okay, so this, the Teisho will start with a reading of the part of whatever text the Zen master is giving a lecture or a Teisho on. So this is from the Record of Lin-Chi, the Rinzai, Record of Rinzai. Lin-Chi is the Chinese pronunciation of Rinzai, which is the Japanese pronunciation of the founder of our school, Rinzai Zen. So, here we go. Followers of the way, what more is there for a resolute fellow to doubt? The activity going on right now, whose is it? Grasp and use but never name. This is called the mysterious principle. Come to such understanding as this, and there are no dharmas or teachings to be disliked. A man of old said, "My mind turns in accordance with the myriad circumstances, and this turning, in truth, is most mysterious. Recognizing my nature while according with the flow, I've no more joy nor any sorrow." So you can see already with this opening quote we're getting Lin-Chi is speaking to the absolute and the relative sides of reality. You could say the source and the result, or the manifestations, the myriad circumstances, and the fact that there's one cosmos containing all the myriad or 10,000 things. Lin-Chi's hitting it hard right out of the gates. No small talk for this Zen master. I always loved this quote. This is the end of Lin-Chi's statement that Roshi's giving the Teisho on. Followers of the way, the view of the Chan school, Zen school, is that the sequence of life and death is orderly. The student of Chan must examine this most carefully. Now that's an interesting quote. The sequence of life and death is orderly. There are moments in life when I am at my most nihilistic and despairing, and I feel like there's no purpose to this life or path through it. And calling out from the very back of my memory, where it bleeds into the collective unconscious, is this voice of Lin-Chi saying, hey, the sequence of life and death is orderly. Don't despair. Don't be nihilistic. Don't be one of these people who's like, it's all chaos. It's a meaningless world. Like, if I may, every once in a while I'll hear like a scientist say this, or like Neil deGrasse Tyson will say, it's a meaningless universe. We impute meaning on the universe. And I'll think, well, is it? I mean, the universe created us, and we're creatures that manifest and search for and live in a way wherein the divining rod in our guts tries to seek meaning as though it's the water of life, okay? Like, and we're part of the universe, so don't tell me what the universe is or isn't. I understand what he's saying, but I think of Lin-Chi's quote, hey, the sequence of life and death is orderly. It's not a grab bag of stupid chaos. All right, okay. Let's go to Roshi now. Okay, Roshi, this is how he starts his Teisho. He says, the part in the text that we just read is a part that I've already given Teisho on twice before recently. This place in the text is especially important. Actually, anywhere you open the Rinzai Roku is important, but this place is especially important. And because this is also the beginning of a new Seichu, meaning he was giving this, let's see, July 14th. So he's giving this at the very beginning of a 3-month summer training period. So once or twice a month, he would be doing week-long intensive Dai-Sesshin retreats, during which he would be giving a Teisho like this. So we're at the beginning of a new Seichu, and there are probably some people here who haven't heard a Teisho before, so that's why I chose to once again give a Teisho on this same part. Now he gets a little chatty here. Everyone, when they are young, we all have great ambitions. We all have great hopes and desires burning in our hearts. But the part in the text that we read today is a part which is speaking from the standpoint that, or from which this kind of ambition, this kind of great hope and desire has completely disappeared. And so for young people, this might hold no interest for you. Rinzai calls out here in the text, resolute followers of the way. And that is the place where I want you to place your attention. He's asking you to have a clear goal, to be a true practitioner? Roshi says, I passed my 90th birthday. When you get to be past 90 and you look upon young people, you realize that kind of ambition and hopes of youth has disappeared for you. For human beings who have lost their hopes, have lost their desires, the best thing to do is to nestle in your coffin. So sometimes there's a like I said, there's a bit of freestyling going on as the teacher begins to engage with, or before the teacher begins to engage with the text. Sometimes literally, Roshi would give Teisho on the first word that he read, or first few words that were read from whatever he's giving a Teisho on. So for example, right here, he's spending a little time talking about how Rinzai said, resolute followers of the way. And Roshi's pausing on that maybe and saying, you all are resolute followers of the way. You all are committing now to a training season, a seichu. You have some ambitions. I used to have ambitions. Now I'm 90 years old. It's probably best that I just nestle into my coffin and die. Okay, so where she says, the reason why this is such an awesome place in the text is because what Rinzai is saying is that, of course, the standpoint of God or Buddha is the standpoint which has no hopes, no desires, no ambition. And just previous to this in the text, Rinzai had been talking about how there really is no God, there really is no Buddha. But if you simply leave it at that and say there is no God or Buddha, then it's easy to make a mistake. If you have not for yourself truly manifested the wisdom which knows this principle of there being no God and no Buddha, no good and no bad, and you simply hear the words, there's no God and no Buddha, then it's very easy to fall into a mistaken way. I think it's fair to say that this is a very difficult place in the text to understand, although it's very short. Because Rinzai is saying that there's neither God nor Buddha, neither God nor the devil, neither good nor bad. And Rinzai calls out to all the listeners and calls them Doryu, followers of the way, people who are practicing together with me. And then he calls all the people who are practicing together with him resolute practitioners, Daijo Bunokon. And so I think I have to explain what he means by that. Everyone who is practicing is a resolute practitioner. But what does it mean to be a practitioner? It means that because you are imperfect and incomplete, you must do practice. To say it simply, what we mean by the resolute practitioner, what we mean by the person who is wearing the koromo, wearing the monk's robe, it is the person who makes it their business to make the two mutually opposing activities, the activity of living and the activity of dying, the activity of good and the activity of evil, both completely their content. I'm pausing and being dramatic because this is the crux in many ways of my teacher's Tathagata Zen. It's a very difficult teaching. It's a teaching that technically no one fully got because he did not name a successor, which is to say a new Roshi who could continue these teachings. He died without without giving anyone Inka, which is transmission. So it's a teaching that I continue to work with myself. What does he mean by this? What does he mean when he says we have to make the two mutually opposing activities of living and dying equally our content? There's incredible relief from suffering when one glimpses the penetrating truth of this statement, in my experience. He says, the person who has completely made living and dying their activity is a resolute practitioner. And then he unpacks it a little bit. He unpacks this statement, what he means here. He says, having met up with the activity of living, here we are. We all appear here. And when we die because we have met up with the activity of dying. Okay? And he says, the reason why troubles come up, the reason why problems arise, is that we fixate our I am self, the quotation marks, I am, end quotes, self. So we fixate the I, me, my, this self. And he says, and then we look upon these two activities of living and dying. So we fixate the self, then we look upon these two activities of living and dying. And goes on to say, when one is fixating one's I am self, it doesn't matter whether one meets with the living activity or the dying activity. One will make these activities objects and recognize them as not the self, other than the self. And this is a problem. This is what winds up causing suffering and illusion, is fixating the I am self and then looking upon the activities of living and dying in an objective way. So time and time again, when Roshi gives Teishos, he's going to talk about how this fixating activity of the mind, this objectifying, is a problem. He goes on to say, even if one has the idea that one must make the activity of living one's content, if one has this idea, has this way of practice, and at the same time is fixating one's self, then one will try to make the activity of living one's content by conquering the activity of living. So this is very interesting. And I did so many years of practice with Roshi, so many koans with Roshi that I can understand what he's saying. So I remember, for example, going into my koan practice with him and trying to manifest an answer, and he would say, you're manifesting conquering mind. You're trying to do something. You're trying to impress me. You're trying to get something. So I think that's what he means here. That's how I take it. When he talks about conquering the activity of living. So we have this acquisitive mindset where we want to get something out of our behavior or activity. We want to extract something of value from the world. We want to get something, right? This is trying to conquer the activity of living. And this is to be juxtaposed to making relationship, is how Roshi will talk about it. I don't know if he talks about it that way here, but making relationship with one's surroundings, making relationship instead of trying to conquer. And making relationship is to not objectify, but to co-participate in one circumstance with your surroundings and dissolve yourself into that activity of participation. And from that dissolving, a new self arises and a new world arises. So it's a very fundamentally different way of looking, of interacting with your surroundings and moving through life. It's a way, sort of in the classic Taoist sense. It's the way. Okay. So we're getting into now a part of this text which I really like. And I have it, over the years I've interacted with Roshi's interaction with Lin-Chi, and I've got stars here in black, I've got underlining in red, I've got highlighting in pink, yellow, and green, I've got more pen marks in blue, and we're coming up on where I've written this paragraph is the crux of Roshi's teaching. So, Roshi says, when a person is fixating their I am self, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, if it's a for instance, a man, and that man looks upon a woman thinking that he must make that woman his content, he will try to conquer the woman. And in the same way, a woman fixating her I am self, looking upon a man, will try to make the man her content by conquering him. As long as you're fixating yourself, as long as you are attaching to yourself, it doesn't matter how much you are able to satisfy your desires, you will still be stuck in your fixated self, the self which gives rise to the heart that truly wants to practice, is the self that understands that there is no fixated self. There truly is no fixated I am self. And here in parentheses it says, and so don't attach to such a thing. So we have some complicated esoteric teachings here. I get a guy who keeps texting me and tweeting at me that he doesn't understand this teaching of no self. And he says, when I sit, I experience, and he says it in capital letters, I experience a sense of self. This is the realest of real things for me. And I never quite know how to respond to him, especially not in a tweet, for heaven's sake. I will just simply say that in this text, Roshi is saying something that you'll hear again and again and again in teishos in different ways and in Buddhist sutras and koan texts. The self which gives rise to the heart that truly wants to practice is the self that understands that there is not fundamentally a fixated self. So it's just kind of looking at your life a little bit differently. The teaching of Anatta, or no self, it's so core to Buddhism, especially the kind of Zen that I practiced. But it doesn't have to be esoteric, and it doesn't have to be off-putting as a teaching. It's simply we can think about when, for example, we are doing our favorite things in life. Watching Dune on a big IMAX screen, playing with your nieces and nephews, playing guitar, playing basketball, a sport, walking down Fifth Avenue in New York and being taken in by all the sights and sounds. Like when you're doing something that completely engages your mind and body, you're not thinking about yourself. You've forgotten yourself. Hold that when confronted with the teachings of no self. Perhaps remember those moments when you forget yourself and are more fully alive because you did. Now imagine being able to forget yourself when you're chopping carrots or sending an email or walking down the street. But it's not forgetting yourself in a lazy or haphazard or sloppy way. It's a very focused forgetting. You're doing the activity so completely that you're gone through it, into it, beyond it. The term Zen means single-pointed concentration. Your concentration is so singular or pure that which is concentrating and focusing, poof. Okay. Here is the paragraph which I call the crux of Roshi's teaching. Are you ready? The standpoint of somebody who is really practicing, who really understands that there is no such thing as the fixated self, then for that person, no matter what you meet, whether it's a flower, a man, a woman, a dog, a mountain, God, or the devil, you know that the kind of practice you must do is to give yourself to that objective circumstance. What we call making relationship. What we call connecting to the object or the objective world is to not fixate yourself. And by either doing the activity of expanding or the activity of contracting to become one with the objective world. Okay, there's a lot in that to unpack. There is no way I'm getting through this whole Teisho. I'm only on page 4 now. I want to hold that paragraph a little bit and open it up. So first of all, from the standpoint of somebody who's really practicing, well, what do we mean by practicing? I always take that to mean putting the basic principles into practice or living consciously as opposed to unconsciously. There are many moments in my life when old patterns and habits are manifesting. I'm in my default mode, which is usually self-protective. I'm manifesting my animal nature, if you will, some sort of pack mentality or amygdala flight or flight, desiring and acquiring, or pushing away, fighting against type mentality. Now, what Roshi's talking about here and what he means by practicing is something very different, okay? So the fundamental thing that we're putting into practice is the fact that there is no such thing truly and fundamentally as the fixated self. The way I've heard Robert Thurman put this is, in that voice that he had, I can't do his voice, but he's a great teacher. He's very engaging. Robert Thurman, the Tibetan student of the American guy who's a Tibetan scholar and a student of the Dalai Lama. And he says the self is real, but it's not really real. So yes, I know you're there. Yes, I know I'm here. Yes, I know the circumstances such that we have to sort of engage with each other as separate nodes. But it's not really real, okay? It's not real in a way wherein you are fundamentally trapped inside yourself, separate from the world around you. The borders are porous. The place where you end and the world or the other begins is not fixed. That border or that boundary is arbitrary. It's illusory. It's created by our human senses, right? Wasn't it Kant who talked about sort of these pre-existing categories within the human mind that take whatever this is out here and translate it certain ways to have boundaries and colors and forms and shapes, but whatever all this is doesn't fundamentally have those things. It's the human person, nervous system, mind, engaging with the world, giving rise to one's self and one's surroundings, and vice versa. So these things are not fundamental. This is a metaphysic. It was very important for me, and it remains very important to me to keep this in mind, because this is a principle, right? It's a principle that I try and put into practice. And if I don't do that, I get lost in lesser modes of being. Like I said, amygdala stuff, fight and flight, or acquisition, or just pettiness, comfort, wanting my little creature comforts, right? When I'm on the bus, I put on my noise-canceling headphones instead of, hey, take in the world, bro. Make relationship with your beautiful surroundings. They're giving rise to you, and you're giving rise to them. You're one. Even in this banal moment on a rainy day where you're driving down Schuttelstrasse in the 80A bus, right? This too is the Dharmakaya. So Let's close with Roshi saying what we call making relationship, what we call connecting to the object or the objective world, is to not fixate yourself. So manifesting relationship. What Roshi's talking about here is I am manifesting a relationship with this chair right now. It's giving rise to the sitting activity with my butt. I'm making relationship with you or with my phone. I'm making a relationship with these surroundings. What that means to me is focus your attention on your surroundings or what you are doing. Because if you don't do that, it's kind of like my attention is kind of in a limpid, stagnant pool inside of myself. And there's just this kind of attention that's being withheld from complete relationship with my surroundings. And it's giving rise to kind of this false sense of self, right? I'm paying attention to myself. I'm sticking around within. Maybe I'm concerned about this writing project I'm working on, or I'm worried about a big travel I have to take to America in a couple weeks. I'm considering bills. I'm working a conversation over in my head that I had with an enemy many, many years ago. I'm in a state of non-relationship. So that Zen practice is to make complete relationship, and you have to be awake, aware, and alive in order to do that, right? You have to be aware. Like, if you're not aware or awake, your attention is going to naturally coagulate around yourself and your own petty concerns and worries. And you're going to get stuck in that place. You're going to stagnate. Your attention is going to stagnate. Look into the eyes of a Zen master. When Roshi would give these teishos, he had awake, clear eyes that were connecting completely with you. I didn't get the sense ever that he was trapped in his head, thinking. And when someone is really engaged with you, they bring you out of yourself. Now you're making a relationship. Okay, Roshi says something here that I want to close on, which is, might be a little bit, it needs some unpacking. So he says, how do you not fixate yourself? How do you make complete relationship? So Roshi says you do that either by doing the activity of expanding or the activity of contracting. Okay, what the heck does that mean? We're going to close on that. I only got to page 4. My apologies. Maybe at another point in the future we will do more of this teisho or more of another teisho. What does Roshi mean by doing the activity of expanding or contracting? Well, the activity of expanding or the activity of contracting is similar to what Roshi was talking about earlier when he said the activity of living or the activity of dying. And Roshi said we have to make these activities completely our content. Well, how do we make the activity of dying completely our content? How do we make the activity of contracting completely our content? Well, we go to bed at night and we lay on our pillow and we let go of our day, of our consciousness, and then we sleep. And that's a kind of contraction, right? We offer our hand to shake someone else's hand, something Roshi did a lot during our koan practices. He would reach out his hand. Now, this is a moment of both expanding or living or initiating, reaching out, taking something, holding it. That's expanding. It's initiating. It's inside coming out. And at the same time, it's contraction. It's the death activity, you could say. It's letting go. It's letting someone take you and contract around you and hold your hand. It's receiving, right? So we initiate perhaps when inside is manifest on the outside, and we receive or contract when the outside comes on the inside, right? When we're not necessarily passive, but we're receptive. We hold. We allow the other to come into us. So there's two activities, you could say. There's initiating and receiving. There's letting the outside come in and bringing the inside out. So these are the two ways you can pay attention or give, right? I mean, in the most basic sense, when you're in a conversation with someone, you initiate completely. You share your heart without censorship or editing or selfishness or self-aggrandizement. You share completely. And then you receive completely. You've been emptied of your words. Now you receive theirs. And you listen. And you're not chattering in your head as they talk, but you're receiving them completely, right? So initiating, receiving, making relationship, complete relationship with that which we normally consider to be the objective world. The boundary of self is porous. It's actually non-existent. It's actually that self is arising when the inside and the outside connect, make relationship, interpenetrate. That self arises. And then our job is, as Roshi says, to give that self away again through initiating and receiving, or through doing the complete contraction activity, or the complete expansion activity, or the complete living activity, or the complete dying activity. Okay? And so on and so forth. Teisho is always a special time during a retreat. It's the opportunity to listen to a Zen master contemplate out loud, share like their deepest, innermost insights as this ancient classic text before them draws their wisdom out, right? So the teacher is actually making relationship with the text and sharing their insights with you. And it's fuel during a retreat. And if nothing else, it helps me anyways appreciate that there are deep modes of understanding that go beyond just simply reading texts and thinking about them and having a few thoughts. It's an example of a teacher engaging just so deeply with a text that it challenges me to, when I go back, for example, and I read this text by Roshi, it challenges me to engage with it, or to engage with the Rinzai Roku when I'm reading the Rinzai Roku or different koan texts, to really engage with it wholeheartedly, with all my being. Shugyo is the term for what you're doing in the Zendo in Japan. Shugyo, it's like a wholehearted practice with all of your being, all of your mind, and all of your heart, and all of your body. You're engaging in the practice. And you can do that with your mind when you're engaging with a Zen text. It's a little bit deeper, as I said, than just, thumbing through something and doing like a sutra study. Anyways, I appreciate you bearing with me while I read through Roshi's Teishos. If you get something out of this channel, out of these talks that I give you, like I said, they're not Dharma talks, they're more just Zen chats. If you get something out of these Zen chats, which I post once a week to YouTube, you can support that work here on patreon.com/ShozanJackHobner. More and more, Patreon is becoming a really important piece of my income. And so I really appreciate it when people support me there. But you don't have to. You can just watch these videos and go about your day. I offer them for free. Throw them out there and then see what comes back. You can also go to PayPal. The link is in the video description below, or you can hit subscribe and hit like and hit notifications button. Otherwise, have a great day and I'll see you next time.